Good evening, welcome to the County Line, and I'm Jeremiah Patterson, and I have the pleasure of sitting here with Dr. Timothy Cuff, Professor of History at Westminster College, and freshman Steve Fawcett, who is a political science major. And the three of us have attended the inauguration of President Barack Obama. So let's go ahead and talk about that experience a little bit. How long were both of you there in Washington, D.C. for the event?
Jeremiah, I got there Sunday afternoon and stayed until Wednesday morning. So I was there for the concert on Sunday, did a day of service, or an hour of service during the day of service on Martin Luther King Day, and stayed for the inauguration, left the next day.
Steve?
I actually flew in the 16th, stayed with my mother, who is a lieutenant colonel in the Army, who is stationed down there for now. And I was there for the whole week, toured D.C., had a blast, and finished off the week with the inaugurations.
So let's get into Tuesday then, and that's when fellow reporter Amanda Conway and myself, when we arrived on the scene, I guess. Now, for us, it was coming out of the metro was kind of the defining moment when you're packed within the subway, and then you go up the stairs and you see that the streets were absolutely empty at 6 a.m. in the Capitol, which was very strange. How about for you guys? What was your kind of entrance to the Capitol on that day like?
We had a hotel right at 11th and E.
Oh, okay.
So we were just a block from Pennsylvania Avenue, but we emerged onto the street around a little bit before 7 o'clock, but we're unable to cross Pennsylvania.
Right.
Because of the parade restrictions. So we walked probably about 10 or 15 blocks west around the White House, and then came back up onto the mall from that direction. So we walked for about 45 minutes along with several hundred thousand others.
Yeah, as they were gathering. And Steve?
I actually had a pretty interesting way of getting to the mall. We actually took the metro on the way there. We gave it a shot at about 5:30 in the morning. Everyone was on top of each other.
Yeah.
And actually, when we got to the final stop to get off, a woman passed out in front of the doors because it was very cold. Everyone dressed up. She probably had 10 layers of clothing on.
Right.
And on that metro train, it was very hot.
It was.
And my mom actually had to drag her off the train before the stampede of people trampled her. So it was actually very crazy. And it took us about 30 minutes to get from off the train to getting outside.
One of the coolest things was that what was our sitting room quickly became shoulder-to-shoulder standing room only. How about for you guys? How did the crowds gathering? What was that like?
We ended up being down near the Washington Monument, which is about a mile and a quarter from the Capitol.
Correct.
So we got ourselves positioned. I traveled there with the Van Dales. Robert Van Dale was a religion professor here at the college some years ago. He and his wife and I traveled down together. For us, it didn't get crowded until almost 11:15, 11:30, at which point things started to jam up a little bit in terms of being shoulder to shoulder.
When I entered into my section, it was probably about 9 o'clock, and by that time it was already shoulder to shoulder. We actually had.
Now you had a ticket though.
Yes, I had a ticket.
You were in one of the ticketed areas.
My mother was able to get 2 tickets from our local senator, from a state senator, and they were silver tickets. And a reference for the viewers again is we were kind of in the nosebleeds of the ticket holders. I was in the first section with the jumbotron, so I was better off than many, but still had to use the jumbotron.
Talk to me about that experience, being in the middle of this massive crowd and listening to what several broadcasting stations have dubbed as the moment when President Obama took his oath of office. What was the feeling like at that time?
For me, I was mostly struck by the joy of the crowd. People we were with, many of them had been with us on the ground standing for 4 or 5 hours, 20 degrees, 20-mile-an-hour wind. It was cold. Lots of these folks were not used to the cold, and everybody was happy.
Sure.
There was a feeling, I thought, of great joy as a European American, something that I might not fully understand in terms of the perspective of an African American, who probably saw this as in some ways another step along the way towards full equality. Many of the folks around us had witnessed civil rights violence, had experienced the difficulties of those times, and in many ways I think the emotion I got from them was our day has come.
Steve?
I would have to agree with you very much on everything you said. There was a lot of things people could have been complaining about. You had the cold weather, the crowd. If you stood where I stood, you had to have gone up at 3 in the morning.
Right.
Everyone was tired. Everyone was exhausted. Nobody complained. Everyone was happy, joyful, having a wonderful time. And for all the reasons you just mentioned, it was really a historical moment. And for all the factors that people had to endure to get there and to stay there, no one complained.
Sure. So what do you think you've walked away with from this experience? And if anything, has it impacted your life on some small scale at all? Do you think that you've learned something from it, or is there something else that you think is worthwhile sharing about it?
I would say from my perspective, it's made me much prouder about this country. I was alive during some of the civil rights era in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And to understand that the type of change that is possible, or that the type of change that has occurred is possible in our country, is a wonderful thing. Oftentimes we focus on the negative, focus on the struggle, and this day, while not the end of the line, is clearly a marker and an opening up in many ways of society in a way that, again, will be difficult to replicate.
Sure.
Yeah. It was definitely a monumental moment, and it was definitely a very large step in the right direction. Not, to put in contrast with all the other events we've had through the civil rights movement and such. And as someone born 30 years after the civil rights movement, it was, and someone who has grown up kind of in the aftermath of that, it really helped me realize the importance of that movement and what really happened there. Because I was seeing, like you said, people who endured through that time and who had racial violence maybe occurred against them, and it really helped me come in touch with that and to really see it firsthand versus learning it in a history class or something.
We've been discussing the inauguration of President Barack Obama with Dr. Timothy Cuff and Steven Fawcett, both members of the Westminster community here. Thank you, and Moore County Line is on the way.